What's going on, everyone? So we're all still anxiously waiting around for what's going to happen with Deandre Ayton. Where is the Deandre Ayton signing? Why isn't he a Laker? And today's the day that he clears waivers. Now, that could be right around the corner, depending on what time you're watching this video and when you're watching this video. It may have already happened even. But the Lakers and Deandre Ayton, we might have gotten an answer as to what is kind of the holdup, what is taking so long. So according to Dave McMenamin, the Lakers are weighing, several trade scenarios to acquire an unnamed center. He wouldn't name who that center was, and are talking to this team about a potential 3-team trade to get done. So he went and relayed this information that the Lakers are basically active in this trade conversation. Now, is this something that began before Ayton became available? Because look, these trades usually don't happen overnight. Sometimes these trades can take weeks, right? Where you're trying to figure out all the details, especially if other teams are involved, other than just like the two teams involved. It also depends on the center, right? Like, here's my thing. If it's like, say, a Nick Claxton, I'd rather keep and go with a Deandre Ayton. Now, could argue you could do both and have like Claxton come off the bench, but then you're paying him $27 million to come off the bench. But then you could kind of justify it that like, well, Ayton's so cheap that, he would be usually the bench guy and making the bench money, but you kind of justify it is my point, right? Now, if it's like a Walker Kessler, then I'd rather go get him because he's a guy for now and the future, right? And, Kessler's shown enough as a starting center to where I'd be comfortable with him as your starter. Now, if it's like Yves Missy, right? Talks about him. There was also reports that the Lakers have had trade discussions about, or trade talks about Nick Richards, Robert Williams, and Yves Missy, right? All three of those guys I look at as backup centers. Now, Yves Missy is the guy that I would like eventually transitioning, right? So you go get Ayton for 2 years, $16 million, let's call it, right? He's your starter, Missy's your backup, and then eventually you make that transition, right? Or whatever, Ayton leaves and then Missy's your backup, right? So you kind of have these talks. So I don't think it's any of those guys. It's gotta be somebody significant. I don't think it's a backup guy because, Dave McMenamin said that, they're clear-cut kind of, they're starting center, like the guy that they would want, moving forward. So who could that be is the question, right? I think Walker Kessler obviously is a guy that immediately comes to mind. Jalen Duren, right? Like, how many teams though are trading their kind of franchise guys, right? Even if it is a Missy, right? Then they still probably sign DeAndre Ayton, right? My other thing though too is I fully believe DeAndre Ayton is going to Lakers. I also think the Lakers know DeAndre Ayton is going to Lakers. I also believe that everybody knows that the Lakers are landing DeAndre Ayton. There were some murmurs about the Milwaukee Bucks. I didn't really buy the Milwaukee Bucks rumors, but, obviously that's off the table, right? They went and signed Miles Turner. I said this, even yesterday, right? In videos yesterday that, I don't think that, Milwaukee, I just don't know why you go to Milwaukee, but they don't even have to worry about it. So everyone, of course, pivots to, well, what about the Indiana Pacers, right? But his agent made it a very big deal that he wants to go to a winning situation play. Also, DeAndre Ayton desperately needs to not only play basketball and be good out there on the basketball court, but he also needs to completely rebrand his image. He needs to completely change the perspective and outlook. I mean, there's already all these reports about Portland and why they cut him or why they waived him, right? It's not good. Talking about a guy that was looked at as an up-and-coming, maybe one of the best centers in all of basketball in a couple years, right? And now he's a far cry from that. He's a guy that just can't get out of his own way. If he goes to Indiana, he's just going to fade away. Like, this might be his last shot. And Indiana's not going to get the media coverage and all that stuff because they're not going to be, America's darling, right? Like, because, again, they're not going to have Tyrese Halliburton and they're not going to go on that playoff run and they're not going to do all that crazy stuff again, right? But if you go to Lakers, right, that spotlight is bright. They're always talking about the Lakers, right? ESPN is trying to make up ways to talk about the Lakers, right? Like, so I just think you get a bigger spotlight. On top of that, you're going to get the starting role. You're going to get to play a big role. You have Luka and LeBron James as the setup man for you, as opposed to Andrew Nembhard, right? Like, it's a very big difference. I like Nembhard, but as a setup guy for DeAndre Ayton is probably not the best. And again, if you have a good season, it's going to be more noticed. if you impact winning, it's going to be more noticed. And if the Lakers end up winning a championship and you're a big part of that, you're a big piece to that, that's going to get more noticed, right? And all of a sudden, now you start getting those phone calls about how, teams are lining up to give you a contract to sign you up, right? Like, so again, like Lakers, they need to be patient, obviously. Gotta stay the course, gotta stay patient, right? Let things kind of develop here. But I would like to at least get that, like, Deandre Ayton intends to sign with the Lakers, right? Like, I'd at least kind of like that information. Can you at least let me know in that regard? And look, we'll see, right? It's very possible that, that is right around the corner, and depending on what the Lakers trade and move. But it also depends, like, when did that trade start? Like, if you got into that when you found out about Ayton, should you have not gotten into that? But then you could also argue, well, if you don't get into it still, then, like, what happens if Ayton signs elsewhere? Then now you're kind of stuck, right? And if you're the Lakers, you probably can't back out of the trade right now, because what happens if Ayton does sign in Indiana? You back out of the trade, and then he goes and signs in Indiana. Now you gotta go, oh no, what did I just do? And go back to that team and be like, hey, remember I said we were done? Like, we're just joking. Guess what? Yesterday's price isn't today's price, right? So, and now you think teams look at you as desperate. Lakers don't land Deandre Ayton, they're going to be even more desperate. So my guess is that the report of the Lakers making the trade, like, that's what's the holdup for Ayton, right? Even if you're looking for a backup, you might be asking, okay, well, if it's a backup guy, well, then why wouldn't you just sign him? Well, again, there can be a million reasons, right? Like, they might not want that to mess up negotiations, whatnot. They kind of might want to have that looming threat out there of, like, hey, we could sign Ayton at any time, right? Kind of put the pressure on opposing. It's very different when you have the option. It's also better if you actually sign the option, right? Because if you actually have Ayton on your team in the purple and gold, well, then now you can go to these other teams and be like, hey, we can just sign Al Horford as a backup, right? Which I would prefer. Look, if it was me, it's just me, I would sign DeAndre Ayton, sign Al Horford, forget trading for a center, right? And then, look, Ayton is, even over, as big as I am on Kessler and whatnot, Ayton, you could argue, is the best center that the Lakers could potentially get, right? It's just, can he kind of focus in, because he is very high risk, right? The motor and whatnot, like the commitment to the game, all of that. But it is just so low risk, high reward that it would be great. But if you can actually get him on your roster, then again, now you have more leverage. But I'm fine with just kind of like have Ayton for 2 years, have, Al Horford for 2 years. You can always bring in that third center that can kind of, well, maybe that young guy that coming, maybe it's Koloko, maybe it's Jamison, right? Kind of bringing in that young guy to run the bit, right? I'd rather go that route. And then now you use your assets instead of trading for a center or a backup center or whatever. Now use your assets to go trade for that clear cut, like wing, right? And Andrew Wiggins, or, can you go get, speaking of the Pelicans, can you go get a Herb Jones? Right now you can go, Luka, Austin Reeves, Herb Jones, LeBron James, and, DeAndre Ayton. Sounds pretty good to me. Go round out the bench. Let's go win a championship. Let's go compete for a championship. Right? So, but I still lean towards, I think Ayton's coming. I think Ayton is going to end up being a Laker. Because any of these, the only thing that would hold it up would be a clear-cut starting center, right? Because it's like you're not going to go trade for like I said, a Nick Claxton if you know you can just go sign Ayton. But then why go trade for Nick Claxton if you have Ayton? Is my point, right? Like, is that really what you want? Like, yes, I'd love to have Ayton, or Nick Claxton. I think he'd be great. I mean, he is arguably the best center filler as far as the defense side of things goes, because of how versatile he is defensively, right? And just being that mobile big. But I'd rather take the flyer on Ayton, because again, that's $27 million you have to send out in salary that you could go and get one, maybe two guys at the wing position that you need. Even if they were willing to give you Nick Claxton for free, even if they were like, hey, we don't want Connect, we don't want anything, right? Just salary swap. We just want to get off of his contract. That's still long-term money they have to take on, and not just the long-term money, but it's also players and salaries that you have to now go and match that you didn't need to go and match that you could have just done over here. It just, again, you get like, it's silliness to me. If I'm the Lakers, unless it is a like Walker Kessler or like a Jalen Duren or like one of these young guys that are just clearly better than everybody. It's just like, yeah, like these are those guys that can have a significant impact right now, but also long-term for the future. Then I'd go make those moves. But other than that, like get Daniel Gafford, I'd rather take the flyer on 8, right? Like, although you could argue Daniel Gafford could be your backup for 2 years and then Ayton departs. But again, it's like, well, then why? Worry about that in 2 years, right? Like, I'd rather the Lakers kind of just stay the course, get Ayton, and then figure out other positions of need. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. If you enjoy these types of videos, truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.